Hey, good evening, y'all. This is Ryan with TrendLizard.com. I'm going to take a look at a few stocks for you today as requested by one of our subscribers, Trey. Thanks for sending me that email. We're going to take a look at Palantir, PLTR. We're going to take a look at PayPal, PYPL, as well as Zoom Communications, ZM. All three we've looked at before, but we're going to start from scratch anyway, just to break it down from every angle to see what we can find. So here is Palantir. Again, we've looked at this guy before. It was incepted back just about a year ago, October 2020. From that inception, gave us a sharp five-wave move, very clear counter trend pullback that retraced a Fibonacci portion of that five-wave up move, and then gave us another five-wave move up into the 2021 high. Since then, it has been depressed. Most strongly in the earlier parts of this pullback, you get the sharp down move here. Since then, it's had some big swings, but net, it has traded sideways over that time frame. So the goal has been, every time we've looked at it, to determine the probabilities of which direction it may break in the near term and where it may head overall in the future. So the initial take, as it's always been, is that this decline here off of the 2021 high looks like a general five-wave move to the downside. And then we have that big, like I said, back and forth price action that we've seen off of May's low, which generally speaking looks like counter-trend price movement. Now, in recent efforts of us to analyze this action, we've taken a close look at this and tried to find different ways that we might be able to label it in a way that would consider this guy bullish, and we'll do that again tonight. Let's go ahead and take a look at another opportunity or another possibility here. If we take that down move and instead try to see if maybe it could be an ABC pullback instead of the five-wave move it looks like. Obviously, if we were to do that, it would be a pretty big A wave, a triangle B, and then a very short C wave. Generally speaking, we don't really subscribe to labelings like this, but we've seen a lot of very short C waves in the current market environment, so it's something we can't rule out. So if this was a counter trend move that completed and the uptrend had resumed, there's two different ways we could look at it to support that possibility. One would be that we got a first wave up, and then everything since has been one massive second wave pullback. Seems a little unlikely. I mean, you're talking about a move that lasted, 4 or 5 weeks, and then you're talking about a move that's lasted double-digit weeks as a second wave. Generally speaking, second waves don't take this long to play out. They're generally not substantially longer than the first wave. Seems less likely. Nevertheless, that gives you an idea of one possibility. The other way would be that the first wave completed here off that initial up leg with a five-wave up move. Then you had the second wave pullback, and now we're getting a smaller degree first and second wave within that larger third wave advance. As is with the breakdown that we've seen in November, I think it's become fairly difficult to be bullish and expect one of these two labelings to be correct. It seems like a pretty strong effort to justify a bullish labeling. I think a more sensible take at this point is that the recovery is an ABC recovery and that price will head lower, but we don't know yet. I think if we take a step back out here, let's see, to the larger time frame, all we know is we have a sharper down move. We've had some back and forth indecisive price action, and it's pretty hard to be bullish until there's something more conclusive either way. Something we could see is a move above 27. If that was the case, I think it would revitalize the bullish case that maybe a low was already in and that Palantir was going to head directly higher from here. But I think as is, boy, with a move that has swung back and forth, generally speaking, that's the type of stuff that we see with counter trend price movement, not the beginning of a trend. I think we would need to see something more convincing to indicate that this is in fact a larger or the start of resumption of the uptrend. To the downside, if we see much more weakness, I think it becomes pretty hard to have any hope for the bullish case here, as is this pullback here off of September's high has already retraced 61.8% of this up leg here. So if you keep seeing additional weakness, it becomes harder and harder to make a case that the pullback is over. I think if we were to put a probability on it, I think it's more probable that we're going to get a larger pullback, as we see here, with an A wave down, a B wave recovery, and potentially a C wave down beginning now or sometime soon. At the end of the day, I think we need to see something trendy, ideally a move above 27, to give any hope that it's going to head directly higher. Until we see that, I think the expectation has to be for a move back below May's low as a C wave decline plays out before this becomes a legit buying opportunity. So there is Palantir. Let's go ahead and move on now to PayPal, PYPL. Now, this was incepted back in 2015, and again, we have looked at it before. Basically, what we see here off of its inception in 2015 is a 5-wave move, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, followed by a larger ABC pullback that retraced a Fibonacci portion of this up leg here, and then a large up move off the 2020 low that has been coming under pressure more recently as it's really rolled over in the past month or a couple months or so. So first off, I want to take a look at this in a different light just to kind of flesh out why we think this is the correct labeling. So we're going to go from that logarithmic scale that we see here, where every box is a percentage move, to a linear scale as we see here. And I want you just more or less to highlight the size of this pullback here. It was one of the largest pullbacks we've seen in PayPal's history, which makes us confident that this was a completed 5-wave move corrected by this 3-wave pullback. And so whatever has been going on, I think the starting point, whatever's been going on right now, I think the starting point is that 2020 low. And let's go ahead and try to label it. So if we take a look at this move here off of the 2020 low, looks to me like a 5-wave move, a first, a second, shorter, then a third, fourth, and a 5th wave. Now, since we recorded a high in PayPal in early 2021, it's been pulling back, but it certainly hasn't been a direct line. You have an A, a B, and a C. Now, if you look at the upside action here off of that A wave low, it's a very clear 3-wave move at this point. And I think that's an important point to make because it makes this 2021 pullback look like a counter trend move, no matter how else you want to label it. So I think that's a bullish thing. So the context for us anyway is that this is a 5-wave move that completed and is currently being corrected by an ABC pullback. And when this counter trend pullback completes, we expect another 5-wave advance to take hold because that's what follows ABC pullbacks, right? So that is a bullish thing. Now on this time frame, although this level is not very close, really the most important level is 270. So if PayPal can move above 270, that would be some really legitimate proof that this is in fact an ABC pullback and would be a major step towards proving that the next 5-wave advance has begun and it is headed much higher. Obviously, that's pretty far away. It's probably not a level you want to wait to be breached. But let's go ahead and zoom in and just take a look at more recent action to see what we can find here. So if we look at the down leg, at least the one off of July's low here, it doesn't look like any type of obvious completed move. You have a first, a second wave maybe, and maybe a smaller first and second wave. Whatever the case may be, we don't really see any completed patterns here. It should take a 5-wave form. I suppose it could take a 3-wave form if it's a complex correction. Whatever the case may be, there's nothing obvious that's happening here that suggests a low is in. And if we look at this bounce this week, it looks like a small ABC move. So bottom line, everything we're saying, there's really no indication that the pullback on PayPal is over. Now, for us to turn bullish on this guy, we would have to see something to suggest that the trend has changed from down to up. I mean, this guy has lost 50% of its value over the course of the last 4 months or so. So I think we certainly need to see some change. So far, we're not seeing it. Again, this down leg doesn't look complete, and we're also not seeing anything to the upside to suggest that it's over. If we take a step back here and look at this and look at where this ABC pullback should ultimately complete, it basically runs from where it is now all the way down to 165. Now, hopefully it doesn't get that low, but the point is it has the potential to before a low is in. So everything we're looking at, there's nothing that's really saying, hey, this needs to find a low here and turn higher. So I think overall on a very long-term basis, we're bullish, but I think you have to see some indication of a low to this big 2021 pullback before you decide to buy, because potentially it could move as low as 165 before it turns higher. So again, we want to see some type of trendy upside price action. A move above 250 would be a good sign as far as what we're seeing on this shorter time frame here. But again, I think the most important thing is to see some trendy price action to the upside, ideally after there's some type of completed pattern for what's happened off of July's low. So there you have PayPal. Let's move on. Let's take a look at Zoom ZM. Now this guy is a pretty easy cover. We just have 2 charts to look at here. Incepted back in 2019, had an ABC pullback, then largely since the start of 2020, had a huge run here all the way up to about 600. Since it recorded a high back in 2020, it's been moving its way lower. Now, if we look at this yellow area right here, this area represents a Fibonacci retracement of this big 5-wave move here. So if we look at the very low end of this yellow area, that represents a 61.8% retracement of this big up leg. Obviously, it doesn't look that big from this view just because we're looking at a logarithmic scale, but this is a very substantial pullback, obviously. So as is, just looking at this price action, I'm not seeing any clear 5-wave moves. You see this up move here. This is a 5-wave move. You see how there's not very much overlap. If you draw lines, price hits it once. But if you look at this move here, you draw lines, there's a lot of overlap in this move, and it generally looks like a counter trend move. Now, that becomes important if ZM can find support in this area because it's retraced to just a little bit more than 61.8%, but we don't want to see it retrace much more than that. If it continues lower, it becomes harder to be really bullish on this guy. But as is, the potential is there for it to find support somewhere in this area and to turn higher. So let's go ahead and just zoom in on this pullback here. So again, it does look like counter trend movement when you zoom in. I mean, you see this down leg here, it looks more like an ABC for a larger A wave than it does a 5-wave move. Seems like a bullish thing overall, but then you get the B wave and now you're getting the C wave decline. If we look at this decline here, it looks like it could be a 5-wave move that's nearing an end. I mean, the potential is there. We could very well find ourselves at a more important low for Zoom, but I need some proof. I just really want to see something to the upside that suggests a low is in. I mean, this is a large move. Again, 580 down to about 240. So you're talking a pretty big haircut there. And I don't think you want to try to catch that falling knife until there's some clue that a low is in. Again, the potential's there. This downside pullback could be nearing an end. There's major support in the form of that 61.8%. But again, I want to see some trendy upside action to the upside, obviously. A move above 342 at any point would be really bullish because that would make this pullback look like an ABC move. Something along those lines to indicate that a low is in. So I think that potential is there, but I wouldn't touch it until there's some kind of proof that this guy does, in fact, intend on leaving a low to this counter trend pullback and turn higher from there. So that is our take on Palantir, PayPal, and Zoom. I hope that is helpful. Come visit us at TrendLizard.com. We do this stuff every day. We'll show you how to use the Elliott wave theory, the most powerful trading strategy out there, in real time on the biggest instruments that you can follow, ETFs. And soon we will be covering stocks and cryptocurrencies as well. So have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.